and welcome to my channel. My name is Aliya. I am an English major and student journalist here at Lewis and Clark College. And today I will be discussing Aliya Whiteley's The Loosening Skin, published in 2018. The plan for this video is to give a general overview and then a summary, and then dive into my thoughts on the book. Also, please like this video and subscribe to my page as there will be more reviews coming soon. Let's get right to it. Also, sorry, my hands are super stained. I re-dyed my hair yesterday. Yeah, so we're gonna have to deal with that for the entire video. To start, I got this book as a gift from a friend after I saw it very briefly in the Barnes & Noble horror section and added it to my Goodreads TBR list, which as of now contains 823 books. I know. Books are certainly the way to my heart, which my loved ones definitely know by now. It's hard to put into words how reading this book felt. It asked big questions about love, connection, and the skin deepness of relationships with others. And though this is just my interpretation, mental illness, Whiteley crafted a well-developed alternate universe in which all of life's natural emotional developments can happen overnight in the blink of an eye and at the shedding of a skin. More than just playing with the idea of humans shedding, Whiteley wanted to get at the true meaning of love and explore how that might interact with a world where a person's whole self can be stripped away and quickly replaced. If you want to avoid spoilers, skip ahead to this timestamp. And just as a disclaimer, this is not going to be very in-depth because I had a lot of thoughts on this book. For the first half of the novel, we follow Rose Allington, a soldier turned bodyguard who is assigned to watch after celebrity actor and director Max Black. The two fall in love, naturally, but their relationship is cut short by Rose shedding her skin. Basically, the premise is that everybody sheds their skin in intervals of about 7 years, but some people who shed have a condition where these sheds significantly affect their mental state and their outlook on the lives that they have spent the last 7 years building. Rose has this condition called extreme molt syndrome, molting like M-O-U-L-T or M-O-L-T depending on where you're from, as in the same process lizards and snakes and reptiles go through shedding their skins. So after she sheds, she doesn't hold the same feelings she previously felt towards Max, and she moves on. Spoiler alert, he doesn't. So we skip ahead to the present day that the first half of the book takes place in, and Rose finds herself working at a charity shop. So she spends her time sorting through items that have been donated, putting them on display, regular retail work. Around halfway through Rose's part of the book, we begin getting memories of her time in the military before she was a bodyguard, and her best friend and mentor Petra. She is alive for the first half of the book, but there's a big time skip to the second half, so she died in between those times. Okay, so we're back to the present here. Max sends Rose on essentially a fool's errand, telling her that the shed skins he keeps on his property have been stolen. Some people burn theirs, but he decided to keep them. She does her research, she does her searching, she manages to track down one skin where she finds out that it was hers, and it was the one she was in when she loved him, when they were in a relationship. So this is where the horror aspect comes in. She confronts Max and he kidnaps her. I feared at this point that it would turn into one of those crappy Wattpad kidnapper romance type tropes. Luckily, it did not go that direction. He had told her that he would burn the skin for her because that's what she chooses to do with her shed skins, but he ended up keeping it. I believe it's unsure whether he had this plan all along or he just wanted to keep it for emotional purposes, which is still weird. So he then pays scientists, alleged experts on the subject, to forcibly make her shed her current skin and then sew her back up into the old one. It sounds gross. I enjoy body horror, but it really wasn't even that body horror-y to me. One aspect of shedding skins that Whiteley makes very clear various times is that the skins hold the emotions of the person who inhabited them. Therefore, Max's goal here is to somehow force those old emotions back into Rose by putting the old skin on a very fresh, new skin, which could be seen as a clean canvas. So this whole process is aided by who I really thought was going to be a minor character, but it's Max's new bodyguard after Rose quit and left him. Her name is Gwen. Definitely remember that. She is significant later. Anyways, the treatment doesn't work for the most part. I guess she feels what I would describe as like a ghost of her prior affection for Max. I believe this section only spans over the course of a couple of days while Rose is recovering from the treatment that probably was unnatural and shouldn't happen. Finally, she's cut out of the skin, Max kind of gives up, and she's let go. So the second half of the book follows Mikhail Stuck. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name right, but I hope so. So Mikhail Stuck is a celebrity who was prior part of essentially a polycule, which is really rare in this society. They were called the Stuck Six, and they all kind of had like a celebrity status, and they were a center of like media attention until they all ended up breaking up. Mikhail worked with Max on the movie he was making before he passed away, which was the same night that Rose escaped. And we find out that it was from an overdose of a shed-inducing drug, and he shed too many layers at once and passed away that way. So the movie they were making was about the Stuck Six, so they were using Mikhail as a reference for the story, basically, almost as like a documentary version of it. By this time, 9 years after the events of the first half of the book, a new drug has been introduced. It's called Suscotin, and it can delay or completely halt the shedding process. So the drug is super popular, almost everybody takes it by this time. However, despite its popularity, we discover it has adverse side effects. Not everyone experiences them, but it's a growing epidemic. Mikhail's best friend, Gwen, the same Gwen that was Max's bodyguard, begins to experience epidermal sclerosis, I believe, which is a disease caused by the Suscotin. There's a lot of doubt because they haven't found a direct link between the drug and the disease, but it's clearly in the works. So Gwen's final request before she passes on is that she gets to apologize to Rose for what she did 9 years ago by helping Max. And so Rose, since the events of the first half, has essentially dropped off the map. So Mikhail spends the majority of his portion of the book searching for Rose, following leads, talking to older characters who have now changed their lifestyles a lot since the first half of the book. These portions are interspersed with memories of his time in the polycule, the Stuck Six. That's how I'm going to refer to it, because it makes the most sense to me. So we learn a lot about his history with that as well. So the book ends with a hesitant reconciliation. Max finds Rose. She hears Gwen out. She doesn't really accept the apology, but all Gwen wanted to do was have that release and be able to tell her how she felt, which is good, I suppose. Moving on, no spoilers in this part, just kind of me talking about the craft. First of all, I loved Aliya's writing style and the way that she intermixed realistic dialogue with more flowery artistic language passages. The storyline was a little bit choppy at times. I think the time skips made it particularly difficult. I usually like a good time skip, but the number of different years she dealt with made it a little bit difficult to follow. For example, she would only refer to years and not months, so you wouldn't know technically if the events of this 2013 were happening after or before the prior 2013 chapter, if that makes sense. If she had specified months, it honestly might have made it harder, because I would have had to go back and check what month the prior 2013 chapter was in. I don't know. I don't know how it could have been made easier. Just maybe fewer jumps between times. But also, on the other hand, it did a really good job of fleshing out the characters, which is definitely a plus. I would also like to talk about the way it was a conversation about mental health. The molting condition Rose has, extreme molt syndrome, is, in my opinion, this universe's alternative to BPD, except with an emphasis on the particular symptom of maintaining relationships and emotional regulation. But again, these are only under certain circumstances, those circumstances being shedding, so it is not a direct connection. I am not claiming that. I would say Whiteley does a good job portraying a mentally ill character, especially with the ways I've seen other authors treat their mentally ill characters. Not very well at times. She also does a good job portraying the inability and unwillingness of others to accept mental illness. Rose is coping with a fundamentally impairing condition. And all Max, her ex-partner who should understand better than anybody wants to do, is cure her. And truly, she sees it as a part of her, in a way, because she's never known anything differently. You see what I'm getting at here? It also touches on the intertwining of the self with a condition and how it can play into being part of one's identity. Overall, I think it was an interesting outlook, and I really liked, again, that Whiteley did not demonize Rose for her mental illness, as many other authors tend to do. In my opinion, Aliya Whiteley's molting idea is just a stand-in for the natural, gradual processes people go through in real life. Rose at one point mentions one of her first sheds that she had as a teenager, where suddenly she hated her mother. I feel like many girls experience that sort of weird detachment and dislike for their mother when they're a teenager, at least in my experience, and from other girls I've talked to who've had the same thing, that kind of changes again as you become an adult. I think the idea of this happening overnight is also very interesting. In real life, relationships kind of go through gradual changes like that. In this universe, the feelings are so raw and bright and quick. I gave The Loosening Skin a 3 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I am very excited for the day Goodreads decides to add a half-star option because I do think it deserved at least a 3.5. I probably would have rated it higher if I had known what I was getting into. However, I got confused about halfway through the book, expecting horror and not getting it. And I wish somebody had given me this disclaimer. It is not a horror book, despite it being in the horror section at Barnes & Noble. Honestly, maybe it deserves 4 stars. I might edit that later. We'll see. All in all, I really do recommend this book. I just want everybody to at least vaguely know what it is that they're getting into. Or, to be more precise, what they're not getting into, which is horror. Because it's not horror. But all of that said, I do hope you choose to read it, and I hope you enjoy it thoroughly. It is a fairly new book, so I don't expect much, but if you have read it, or if you haven't and are looking forward to it, please be sure to comment your thoughts about this video down below, and like and subscribe if you have the time. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I will see you on the next review.